Hello, runic astrologers and wisdom seekers, whether you are live joining me in the hearth space or you are here on the YouTube channel or on the blog. It's lovely to see you. It is Monday, the 23rd of May. My name's Maggie Rose Cunningham. I am the host and creator of Maggie and Rose, bringing you all things runic and northern tradition for people looking for ancient wisdom that they can apply, here today in the future. And it is lovely to see all of you. I'm going to be running through our planetary movements for the week ahead. And for those of you who are able to join me live, do share in the chat box what runes you have. So your rune of the week for the week ahead, and I'll be able to do a little mini reading for you of what that might mean and how you can work with it. So we're looking to really weave with our weird, our individual weird, our sense of destiny and how the energies are flowing for us personally and also collectively, which is why we do the planetary movements as well. So hello, I can see hi, lovely Esther saying hello there and sharing your rune already. That is great. So we've got two planetary movements, as I said. So today, Frigg's Chariot, so that's the Roman equivalent is Venus, here moves into Mannaz, the rune of the sovereign, the rune of the divine human. And you'll remember that I mentioned last week that Odin's chariot is in retrograde in Ingus. So he's on that sort of descent journey, you might say, down into the womb of the earth, looking for replenishment, looking for new wisdom. So Frigg's in charge. And so we can see that it's a real time for collaboration. And it's a real time for feeling into the theme, which is actually supported by our second planetary movement as well. And the theme is around knowing your boundaries and knowing what you are here to do in the world, and and how you're going to go about doing it. And a lot of that is about getting out of your own way. Frigg is a goddess who she leads through collaboration. Interestingly enough, when we think about Venus, the planet itself sometimes is ascribed to Frigg and sometimes to Freya, both of whom are very powerful goddesses and both of whom live in Asgard, the realm of the Aesir. Frigg is the queen there, but Freya was a member of the Vanir, and she moves to Asgard as part of a peace exchange. It's a war between the gods of earth and sky. So Freya is an earth goddess of the Vanir, and she comes over and she's part of this peace. And so her sovereignty is in many ways, she gives up her own realm in order to support both realms, in order to be there and support both realms. And she stays in her sovereign identity, similar to Tyr, who we've been working with in the hearth space through the course of the month. He is not a classic king. He's not seated on a throne. He was a king. He becomes a warrior. He becomes a priest. He does what is necessary. He gets out of his own way. So there's a lack of ego, I suppose you might say. What's important? What is it that I am here to support? So it's thinking about sovereignty as service is one of the ways we might look at that, which is why it's important to say, let's get out of our own way. Might also be why Odin goes to descend, and goes on to his, he goes into retrograde quite frequently, and it's almost like he retreats in order to let go of all of the stuff so that he can be of better service when he returns. So we have Frigg and we have Freya and we have a sense of sovereignty. And what Frigg asks us to do at this time is to really feel into how are we being in our sovereignty in terms of our care of ourselves. Because if we don't care for ourselves, we cannot support the work that we are here to do in the world. I'm really cognizant of that for myself at the moment. I'm aware, you can hear that I've got a cold. It's not COVID, bizarrely. It feels like COVID, if I'm honest, with the chest, but it's just something that's going around our children's school, and so everybody has it. But I'm also more and more aware that when I get ill like this, there is normally a soul journey or a discovery or something that I need to feel into that is attached. So it's like my body is physically manifesting something that's also happening on other layers as well, sort of emotionally, spiritually, within my mind as well. So I'm sort of looking for those and following those threads and saying, I need to do that, Normally, it's in order for me to step more fully into my next growth area for my purpose, to provide the service that I want to in the world. So one of the realm, like at the center of the realm, your realm, the place that you are bringing your purpose, where you hold your vision for the world, is you. So we get that self-care bit right. Then we have our next layer out, which is your tribe, your family, your friends, the people. Sometimes it can be animals or places, your garden, the sacred place that's important to you, and what is the service that you are there to do. And we might think about that with the Gibo rune as well, the exchange, that when we care for ourselves, we have more energy to give. We go out into our community, and I say that in the broadest possible way, and we give and we receive at the same time. So it's a reciprocal relationship. And then beyond that, we have legacy, the legacy that we're going to leave out in the world. And this is very important for Frigg at the moment, because at the end of the week, on the 29th, we're moving into Suna's chariot. The sun is moving into Athala. And so she's reminding us, she's saying, through the course of this week, spend some time looking at your self-care. Have you got that right? Is there anything that you need to do more of so that you can be the sovereign who serves? Looking at your tribe, your sense of place and space. Is there anything that you need from it, or that you want to give more to achieve that balance where you are being supported and sustained by your community at the same time as you are participating within it? And then when we get to the end of the week, we'll be in a much better position to then step more fully into the energy of Athala, the energy of legacy and estate, and that feeling of being connected to something. When we think within the Northern tradition, we are thinking about the power of memory and our connection to the ancestors and our connection to land. And a lot of the work that we do is about connecting in with that, in through our roots, to nourish ourselves. But then what are we doing with the manifesting into the future, with the branches, reaching up to the stars and becoming a link in that chain, becoming part of the web? What's going to be there beyond you? Even if no one knows that it was you, it doesn't have to have your name attached. It can be nice, and we know that our ancestors were very into the idea that your legacy and name was important. So I'm not saying that it's not important, but the most important thing is always leaving the legacy out in the world. So this week is really a powerful time to be thinking about sovereign identity in those three areas. Okay, let's have a look and see what we have got from people. So we'll start with Esther. Lovely Esther. Good morning, Esther. So you have got Rado for this week. So there is that sense of, obviously Rado, the rune of the journey, the rune of the road. And Esther, I feel as if you've had this rune before. Let me see. Certainly that sense of rhythm is something that I know you've been thinking about quite a lot recently. That sense of stepping into divine timing we've been talking about. It's very calm, it's very peaceful, the Rado rune, when I'm feeling it with you. Here's our Rado rune for everybody that Esther is going to be working with. And it can be a rune that can be very, very powerful. If you think about that, the beat of the drum that's calling you forward, and it's that rhythm that almost carries you with it, that it's momentum. That's what I was looking for. So there is a sense in which when we work with the Rado rune, we can be doing it, and we can be sort of taking that stroll through the forest and feeling into ourselves once more. But as we start to build and feel into the Rado rune, it starts to bring momentum in. It's things like, when we start to create a new habit or a new ritual in our lives. I like to think about them as rituals more than habits. We create the new ritual, and it starts off when we have to be very mindful about it and tend to it and make sure that it's working right and remember to do it each time. And then it's like the drum beat becomes louder and easier for us, and we start to get into that rhythmic flow with it. And it starts to go into the subconscious mind, and our body starts to know, oh, that's what I need to do next. And it becomes easier. And eventually it gets to the point where our brains almost actually tune it out, that rhythm. A little bit like, technically our ears are always hearing the sounds of our heart beating, but the brain moves that all out so that we can hear what's going on around us. So I think that for you, Esther, it's about saying, make sure that there are times of real quiet where you can feel into the rhythms that have become silent, that almost like taken for granted. And they're not necessarily for you, they might be for the world around you as well. And recognizing that they were constructed at some point, and it's bringing that real awareness to that. So I'm thinking about even things like, the 9 to 5 day. And I don't think necessarily that this is for you, it's an example perhaps for other people. We think that the 9 to 5 day is it has to be this way, and certainly our society thinks that it has to be this way. And you can see that with lockdown easing, that a lot of what people are seeing now is that flexibility that had come into a lot of people's jobs, not everybody's, but a lot of people had found more flexibility and more productivity and more fruitfulness because they weren't having to follow sort of very rigid mechanized times. There was a lot of freedom, and now that mechanized rhythm is coming back because it was still silently playing in the background, because we brought conscious awareness to the fact that it was maybe not working to us, but we haven't yet established a new rhythm. So it's looking at those things. It's saying, okay, even when my conscious mind might be reaching for something else, where are the rhythms around me? Where might that be difficult for me? And I might need to bring a little bit more intention to this in order to not be sucked back into a rhythm that's not working. Oh, that's quite a long one for you. I struggled a feeling that there might be some things there for other people as well, but I hope that is helpful. Suzanne, the collector. Suzanne is the collector of the runes, so people who cannot be present, but who let her know in the hearth space ahead of time what runes they've got. So you've got Isa, which I know is your lunar rune, Suzanne. Oh, I don't know if I need to say anything on that front, if I'm honest. It just feels so. Actually, what's coming through to me very strongly is a sense of lightness, which is different to when a lot of people, when they encounter Isa, they feel the heaviness and the rigidity that Isa can bring. Whereas Rado is in movement, Isa is all about stillness. So in some ways, maybe not an opposite is too strong a word, but they talk to each other. The Isa rune and the Rado rune is the best way that I can say it. So the Rado rune is the rhythm, and it's unconscious, and it's like, yeah, I'm going forward. Isa, its natural state is to be still. And in the rune poems, when they talk about the blind man needing to be led across the ice, it's almost that sense of what I was talking about to Esther, of us needing to become much more aware of our senses, much more aware of what's happening, that we can't just sort of trust our instincts. We're learning something new each time we cross the ice. We have to be so careful. It really reminds me of when I had arthritis when I was very, very young, and I had spent a lot of time walking on crutches, and then I walked with a stick for a long period of time. And even to this day, when I walk over ice and frost, my jaw starts to tighten, and I can feel that sense of the fear of falling, because at the time, if I got even a tiny little bump on my body, it would flare up, the arthritis would flare up, and moving through that fear was very, very difficult. And Isa can bring that sense of I just need to be still and safe, So I wanted to bring that because that's not coming through for me there with for you, Suzanne, but I know that's something that other people can feel with the Isa rune. And it can also help us to recognize that the deeper we go into the runes, and the more that we feel them and move into the heart of them, we can just feel into that expansiveness. But sometimes we get to the point where we are almost resonating out more powerfully the energy of that rune, because we're sort of deep inside it, and we can call forth the energy of the rune in other people, because something in them goes, oh, I need a bit of that, or there's a bit of growth for me there, so that might be something for you to look out for as well, Suzanne. It might be, where is Isa playing out for other people around me, and how could I play with that? Because once you've got your rune knowledge as well, you can be a bit like, okay, I can stay in my Isa energy and feel that lightness. What might they need to move through this the stiffness and the rigidity, and sometimes becoming trapped in stillness that can happen. So it's almost a recognition of the the negative aspects of each of the runes that we often have to move through in order to find the power inside. Chen, you've got Ingus, so that's really still resonating beautifully with Odin in Ingus, soon as Chariot still in Ingus, very powerful time. And I think that for you, what that rune is drawing you into patience. Let's wait that little bit longer. Not everything is going to be revealed right now. And it reminds me as well, almost this sense of, imagine like a seed in the earth, because the Ingus is about gestation, or a babe in the womb. They don't know what's coming next. They don't know what's coming next, and yet the body continues to grow, and they continue to sort of move forward. And at some point, amazing mystery still unknown to us, really, is when does individual seeds will choose to germinate at particular points. It's like the optimal conditions. Why is a child born at a particular point? Obviously, I have my own views on that with working with the Disir and then working to weave that in so that we are born at the optimum time. But it's reminding you that there is an optimum time, and it might not be now. And so in waiting, you are not you're not letting yourself down, you're not letting anyone else down, you're not what's the word I'm looking for? You're doing the right thing is the sense that I'm getting there, and it's recognizing that it's often the right thing to wait until the perfect moment, because everything will be easier in that time. Rebecca, you have Suelo, the rune of the sun, spinning round beautifully there. And this is for me very much about, whereas Mannaz can be about community and responsibility and legacy, that's what I was looking for, sort of legacy and service. Suelo is more about leadership, and it's about self-leadership, so knowing yourself and your instincts and following those. And it is about inviting risk in to a certain extent, and that confidence that people will have when they'll say, go this way, and other people go, wow, I believe them. So there is a magnetism is the word that I want to look for. There's a persuasive power and a magnetism that comes with the Suelo rune. It's more like, you might think about it more as like a princely energy. I don't know if you know the word atheling, so this sort of sense of the noble, who they are not the king or the queen, and so they can't lead from established authority as such. They lead from presence and vision. So just allow that Suelo rune to really shine through, and to give that sense, this way, it's so exciting over here, and allow the Suelo rune to do that for you, and just really feeling into that sense of I'm not yet at the stage where I have to sort of sit on the throne and in some way be constrained. There is a lot more freedom with the Suelo rune, so it's sort of saying, play with that and allow your instincts to guide you where you need to go there. And then Felicity has Ewaz, the rune of partnership, the rune of the rider and the steed. It's a real sense of rhythm, and I'm imagining now this the horse and the rider upon a hill, and it's that sort of blue blackish sky where the lightning's flickering off in the distance, and there's the sea is ahead, and the rider is sort of saying, probably we should go home right now. But both the horse and the rider are also going, wouldn't it be so cool to just ride the storm? And it's that sense of the not even the unknown, of pushing your own boundaries, we might get absolutely soaking wet and really, really regret this, but we might also have the most amazing, awesome time. And it's really feeling into that is the sense that I'm getting of the Ewaz rune connects us in less with some of the other runes will do sort of instinct and intuition and trust and confidence and all of those things. Ewaz is so much about the otherness, and recognizing that when we do something that is outside of our comfort zones, we become other to ourselves for a moment, for a brief period of time. And that flicker of fear is recognizing that the self that you knew after you've taken this journey will be changed and different. You know, whether or not they're changed and different because they're like, I will never, ever go riding in a thunderstorm again, you know, or that was the most amazing and epic thing I've ever done in my life. Wow. You know, whatever is the case, you know, the choice to follow that frisson of risk invites you into becoming something other than what you are right now, which can be quite exciting. You know, and so it is following that the fluttering, you know, instinctive moments and allowing yourself to go with them is the sense that I'm getting for you there, Felicity. Erica, you have got Bacano for the week, the lovely Bacano rune, the birch tree, divine feminine. It's a different energy to Felicity, but interestingly that I'm still getting a link and I'm going to follow it there. Whereas we have Felicity, she's off on her horse and she's riding, you know, presumably, you know, across the sea. Bacano is an invitation into a more, in some ways, what might feel like a safer space. The landscape is one where you might imagine ferns, you know, ancient ferns, birch trees growing with the green leaves flickering in the breeze. And there's a path running through, you know, one of those paths, and you're following that path. And it's that sense of not moving into otherness, but discovering something deep and profound within you that's already yours. It's that initiation into the self, and particularly into the mysteries of the divine feminine, which is being called. And I'm almost seeing this path into this like woodland space as being a spiral that moves inwards and inwards and inwards into the deep cave space, almost like a huge, like a crystal cave in the centre with the waters and I see fossils in there as well. It's very detailed, Erica. I have to say, you know, what I'm seeing for you here. And I think that it is almost saying, recognize that this isn't just a space that has opened itself to you because you needed it. It's opened itself to you because it needs you as well. Now, there are some people who are simply called to follow a pathway that you might describe as being, you know, a priestess or, you know, a Vitki or a healer. And there is a sense for me in which at this time the Bacano rune wishes to honour you. So what I would maybe like you to think into is, what could you do to honour yourself within this and to claim that identity even more strongly for yourself at this point? Because I feel like that's what the Bacano rune is offering for you. Caro, hello, and you've got Ingus for this week. So we've had Ingus before, but let me just feel into see if there's anything different, because the Ingus and Bacano runes often work well together, and I'm getting a sense again, often these readings work because it's the collective energy of the group and how they come together. The Bacano rune and the Ingus rune often work in partnership together, so the fact that they've come up sort of synchronously, is that word? Together suggests to me that there is a sense in which it's a recognition of the Ingu seed inside the energy of Bacano, and almost recognizing that. So I'm looking at sort of alchemy there between the masculine energy and the feminine energy, and that balance within you, and that sense in which the Bacano rune can be the land, or it can be the way in which you manifest the energy of the divine feminine around you, that sense of providing safety and support and nourishment, like literally like to others, and that often that's a birthing of their seed of whatever it is that's coming through. But it's recognizing at this point that actually the most important thing is the seed that you are birthing for yourself. So coming back to that point around feeling into sovereignty and saying, you know, what is it that you need? It's looking at it and saying, okay, what is the Ingu seed that is being birthed out of the energy of the present moment? What is it that you wish for that's going to come, you know, new and fresh and alive and burst forth from the nourishment of the Bacano rune? So you see the Bacano rune is the soil, and the Ingu's rune is the seed that then becomes the plant that grows up in that space. So really feeling into What is it that you are growing for yourself? And what might you need to do to just bring a bit more intention to that while you're waiting for the Ingu's energy to flourish and manifest. Is there anything else that I want to note on that? I think the only thing to note is that although we're coming to the end of the half month of Ingus, Ingus, yeah, that's fine. I had a moment then. Odin's chariot will stay in Ingus for a while longer, and he's going to be in retrograde, and then he'll come out, and it's going to be about the time of the summer solstice that starts to shift. His his retrograde period will finish, and then he'll come back through Ingus, and it'll start coming up as well. So there's a period of time when that's available to you. So it's sowing those seeds, sowing those intentions. I mean, maybe actually literally getting some seeds and planting them and whispering your intentions for yourself into them could be really powerful. Diane, you've got Gibo, and I don't think I mentioned it at the time, but if you look at the Athala rune, this idea of legacy, we've also got the Gibo rune within it. So that it's a recognition there that just as I was saying that when we are tending to our communities and our tribes and our land and our hearths, that we are receiving as well. There is also a promise bound up in the Athala rune too, that our legacy is something that we can connect to just as tangibly and just as powerfully as the memory store that Urd holds. So Urd, the Norn of that which was, Skuld, the Norn of that which must be, also holds, within her this view of all of the many potential futures. And she's always working to sort of pull and say, this way. It's part of why we do this work, why we do runic astrology, why we do the birth runes, is to help us to select the threads that are the most powerful. And so there is that almost the recognition that what we leave out in the world resonates back like an echo. We make our song, our rune song, we sing that out. It goes, resonates back into the past where we can do ancestral healing work, but it also resonates back out into the future as well. And we can, receive back. That's slightly nebulous, what I've just described, but I know that probably, Diane, that will be enough for you, because we've talked about sort of past lives and things before. So I know, certainly, I think that we've talked about the possibility that time is not always linear, and that sometimes our past lives turn out to actually be our future lives, which is always very interesting. So it's recognizing that Gibo energy, and I think almost opening yourself up to the legacy of future as well, and feeling into that sense in which our legacy is not always behind us. It's ahead as well. Darren, hello, hope everyone is okay. Had a good week. Something that hasn't happened before, I pulled 2 runes this morning. That can happen. Sometimes people will share like that with Largus and Athala. Didn't want to come across as too curious, so please choose. You know what, Darren? I don't. It's fine if it happens every now and then, and it happens for a reason. That's not a problem. And sometimes the runes are meant to come that way. Particularly as I've literally just talked about Athala with Diane, and I was feeling that Gibo Athala pull between the two of them. And you can see Gibo as well actually in the Mannaz rune as well. So the Gibo rune is quite present there, Diane, just to go back to that for a moment. And you can also see the Largus rune in Mannaz as well. You've got a couple of Largus runes there too. With Largus and Athala, the immediate things that come to my mind for Largus and Athala are around. I was talking to Erica about the divine energy of the goddess with the Bacano rune, that sort of life-giving and returning to the realms of the dead in some way as well. It's both. It's that doorway. Largus is also a doorway. It's the doorway of water, and it's the one which we, as the living, tend to use more to journey through, to commune with the dead in particular. So I'm aware of that with the Athala rune, and I feel as if what it's suggesting is that there's perhaps a connection for you, an ancestral connection through your matrilineal line that could be really powerful for you at the moment. And it might be a number of steps back out of your known family tree, then it might be that you go, oh, you know, I can feel into this, and it's on my mother's line, or it could be on your father's line, but you know, like up to your father's mother, for example. So you want to just maybe just play with that a little bit. And what I'd like to suggest is, when we work with our ancestors, sometimes they have messages for us, and sometimes they have things that they want us to do, and there is a sense of acceptance because we are all, you know, we can be flawed, you know, and but sometimes they are asking us to connect with the best of our ancestors, you know, because for all of the, you know, the weaknesses and the foibles and the getting things wrong, every single one of our ancestors in this room got something right, because none of you would be here if they hadn't done that. It would be impossible. So their survival instinct was good. And I get this real sense of almost like a sort of queenly, I don't want to say idealized, that's wrong, but it's a sense of, if you were to choose a, I'm gonna say a woman, but you know, it's most likely to be female, but you know, who knows? It's an embodiment of feminine energy from your past, and say, you know, what would the characteristics be that I would need to feel, you know, fully seen by the divine feminine within my ancestral line, to feel honored, you know, to feel the alchemy of masculine and feminine. What would those characteristics be? And really to sort of feel into that, and have a play with connecting with your matrilineal ancestral line. Esther says, I had radar come through back. Yeah, I thought that you'd had radar before. And she says, yes, that makes a lot of sense with bits that I'm working on. Suzanne says, very interesting. Marie says, you've got Athala. So that's interesting that Athala's come up again. Yeah, so there we go. We've got Athala, keeps on coming up and saying, my half month's coming. What's coming through that's so... Oh, interestingly, for me, Marie, given what I was just talking to with Darren, and we're talking about sovereignty, and I think this might be a message that you've had before, but it's perhaps just a different way of looking at it. It's perhaps recognizing yourself as being part of a long line of spiritual matriarchs, like women who are there to tend to the spiritual spaces of their clans, and standing in that circle. And what I want you to imagine is calling in your Desir circle. So I suppose in some way similar to what I was discussing with Darren, although there was a lot more of that sort of tracing the family tree and perhaps focusing on a single energy, like a single spirit. For you, it's about saying, you know, if you invite them in, invite your ancestors in, who have also carried that responsibility, and imagine standing with them in circle, and imagine them taking your hands and standing there and honouring each other, will, I think, be really powerful for you at this time. Tracy says, hello Tracy. Eric says, well, so very much resonates with the magical doll sacred feminine sharing. Of course, yeah, that I just experienced and reported in the heart space about. You did, Eric, you did. It's like the doll with Bacano in the womb apron expresses through me. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Carolyn says, thank you, that makes sense to me. Being in the process of inventing myself, the seed is kind of set. But yeah, need to feel it and allow it to grow inside. Felicity, riding the storm. Well, I'm glad that that's a powerful reminder to you and what you needed. Pamela drew Dargaz this morning. So, I've been feeling into the Dargaz rune lately, Pamela. It's one of those runes that often speaks to me sort of bodily, but is less easy to access verbally. The voice doesn't come through as straightforwardly, and I think it's partially because it sort of dismisses all of those things. It's a rune of unity that dissolves difference and brings all of that into itself. You know, it sort of collapses in on itself, and then there's steps new and anew and anew. It's almost saying each day when you wake up, you know, what can I do to honour this day? What can I do to honour myself in this day? So very much asking you to step into presence and to say, if this was, I know this is sort of an old thing and people have said this before, if this was my first day or if this was my last day, what would I do with it? If I was to set the tone for the legacy that I want to create out there in the world through the course of this day, what would I do? And it can be quite small. Like Dargis doesn't necessarily expect us to solve all the problems in the world or anything like that, because Dargis sees the small as being just as powerful as the big, because as I said, it collapses meanings down into a single point. So you could say to yourself, okay, I'm going to choose I like 3 because it's a magical number. I'm going to choose 3 things to do on this day that I would choose to do, because imagining that this day is my first day and my last day. Here we go with the Dargis rune. So you can see that it contains duality, but everything comes into this point in the center, and it collapses in, and then you go through the door of the Dargis rune, and then there's another day on the other side, and that day is just as important as the last one. Dargis itself doesn't say, oh, well, yesterday was far more important than today. No, every single moment is equal in value and importance to the Dargis rune. So that's what I would suggest for you, is to set that as an intention, and it might be something that you just as a rune of the week, that you could do that each day through the course of the week and see what comes, see what transformation comes, and how easeful that can make it, and how much more precious each day can be by just choosing 3 things that you want to do to honour the preciousness of the day. Diane says, thank you, plenty to think about there. Thank you. I'm glad that there was, Diane, because I felt as if it was sort of skipping around something, a misty reading for you there. Tracy, you've drawn Mannaz, so excellent that you're using your Mannaz rune while Frigg's Chariot is moving into Mannaz. So I would suggest perhaps that this might actually be Frigg saying, hello, this is a good time to start to work with me if you haven't done so already, Tracy, or to perhaps renew a relationship with Frigg. If you're not a member of the Hearth Space, you might want to consider it, so that you can access all of the recordings and classes that we did last year. So you have a bank of, I want to say how many there's going to be. There's going to be about 40 recordings in there for connecting with the AC Nur, who are Frigg and, her handmaidens, in fact. So you can look at that. I will also post a link to a couple of sites that talk about Frigg and her handmaidens, because I feel as if she is sort of saying what you need at this point is a different definition of sovereignty to the paradigm that the modern world gives us, which can be so individual, competitive. This is what success looks like, powering through, all of those, very commercialized, very much about money, all of those things. And it's sort of saying, there are other ways to connect into sovereignty. And Frigg's web of collaboration and all of the meanings that we drew in the Hearth Space classes could be really, really useful for you. But I will also post a couple of links as well. Let me see. So what else have we got? Darren says, thank you for sharing. So does Marie. Lisa, you've also got Mannaz for this morning. So interesting. I'm going to suggest the same as for Tracy, with that sense of reviewing what sovereignty means to you. And you might think about this in terms of queenship as well. What does queenship mean for me right now? Do I want it to be what it is for me right now? Is my realm, too big, too small? Or do I have the correct support that I need in place? Do I have the advice and the counsel that I want? Do I have somebody to step in to do some of the stuff, when I'm not okay? Frigg is a mistress of doing that. Although she, think about it in a planetary way, she goes retrograde much less frequently than Odin. She is far more present than him. In that sense, he disappears more frequently. One of the reasons that she can do that is because she has this web of support from the AC Nur, who take on very unconsciously aspects of Frigg's realm that are important to her, and that she trusts them to manage those aspects, and therefore she can achieve much more collectively than she could if she was trying to do everything herself, individually in that sense. So I'm going to invite you to think into that. What would Frigg say? As you look at what does it mean to be in charge? What does it mean to lead? And how do I do that? And again, if you're a bit late, you might want to look at the beginning of the recording, just where I talked a little about sovereignty and the different realms. Pamela says, ancestral part brought me to tears. I recently healed connection with my birth mum. Oh, thank you for my Dargaz reading. It makes sense. Been rebuilding myself, and it's hard knowing what to keep and what needs to go. So the Dargaz rune, Pamela, I think one of the reasons why it goes beyond words is that it is one of those runes that provide like deep opening and reconnection and enlightenment. It's there to open gates and doorways and bring light to where is needed. So yeah, trust the rune and let it do its work. And I'm really glad that was helpful for you. Diane says, yes, I agree. Very misty. Apologies for that, Diane. It was misty. And there we go. I think that is it. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Wishing you a very happy, prosperous, abundant, insightful and sovereign week ahead. And I will see you next week. And let me see, what else have we got going on? So we don't have a masterclass in the Hearth Space this week, because I'm going away on my wild retreat. But we do have, for the Inner Circle, we've got our Hygge session where we come together to discuss the theme of the month. So we're going to be reviewing everything that we've done with Tear and Sacrifice. So I will see those of you who are sort of Inner Circle members and want to come to that class on Thursday. And Erica says, get well from your cold. Yes, I'm going to be working on that, Erica. Doing what needs to be done, releasing what needs to be released, and finding out what message does this cold have for me. Okay, see you all very soon.